in an organization, they actually forget their real job. And the real job of a leader is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in our charge. And I don't think people realize this, and I don't think people train for this. When we're junior, our only responsibility is to be good at our jobs. That's all we really have to do. And some people actually go get advanced educations so that they can be really good at their jobs, accountants or whatever, right? And you show up and you work hard, and the company will give us tons and tons of training how to do our jobs. They'll show us how to use the software. They'll send us away for a few days to get trained in whatever it is that we're doing for the company. And then they expect us to go be good at our jobs. And that's what we do. We work very hard. And if you're good at your job, they'll promote you. And at some point, you'll get promoted to a position where we're now responsible for the people who do the job we used to do, but nobody shows us how to do that. And that's why we get managers and not leaders. Because the reason our managers are micromanaging us is because they actually do know how to do the job better than us. That's what got them promoted. Really what we have to do is go through a transition. Some people make it quickly, some people make it slowly, and unfortunately some people will never make that transition at all. Which is we have to go through this transition of being responsible for...
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Simon. I agree with a lot of what he says. I think a big failure in most companies' training, whether it be corporate America or mom and pop shops, is not really explaining different forms of leadership. I feel like a lot of leaders or a lot of managers kind of go chameleon on things and try to blend in, or maybe mimic, what they see other managers doing or other successful people doing. But the problem there is that you lack authenticity, right? You're not being who you are. And it's really hard to be a leader and have to hold a facade, have to keep a fake image going, and it'll drain you. It'll drain you emotionally, it'll drain you mentally, it'll drain you physically. I feel like a lot of companies don't talk about this. I think this is the downfall of corporate America, that, we don't talk about this. As far as being leaders, you have to know what your leadership style is. There's so many different ones out there. There's transformational, there's delegative, there's authoritative, transactional, participative, servant. For me, it's servant leadership. I've always wanted to be a leader that prioritizes the growth and the well-being of my people, and to empower my employees. And a lot of people don't understand that. I want you to go on and be better than I was. I want you to exceed where you're at. I don't want you to settle. I don't want you to be content. I want you to go on and live a better life, and anything I can do to facilitate that, I will do that. A big part of being a servant leader is being an open book, having radical transparency, talking with your people nonstop as far as what can you do to help them achieve their goals in life. We're only on the earth for a finite amount of time, so it's important to understand what your leadership style is, and once again, I just feel like that's where corporate America drops the ball so often, is that they don't explain different styles of leadership, man. There's so many different ways to skin a cat, man, but if it's not the way that you're built naturally to skin the cat, it ain't gonna work, so you need to study that. You need to look into different types of leadership and figure out which one works for you. If you're not militant, if you're not an alpha, if you're not somebody that's rah-rah in your face, you can't have that militant style leadership, right? If you're somebody that's naturally empathetic, if you're somebody that's naturally a people person, that's not going to work for you either, right? You're probably going to lean more to servant leadership. You're going to look to pour into your people. But yeah, so we'll listen to some more of what Simon has to say.
For the job, and then turning into somebody who's now responsible for the people who are responsible for the job. And as I said before, one of the great things that is lacking in most of our companies is that they are not teaching us how to lead. And leadership is a skill like any other. It is a practicable, learnable skill. And it is something that you work on. It's like a muscle. If you practice it all the days, you will get good at it and you will become a strong leader. If you stop practicing, you will become a weak leader. Like parenting, everyone has the capacity to be a parent. Doesn't mean everybody wants to be a parent, and doesn't mean everybody should be a parent. Leadership is the same. We all have the capacity to be a leader. Doesn't mean everybody should be a leader, and it doesn't mean everybody wants to be a leader. And the reason is because it comes at great personal sacrifice. Remember, you're not in charge, you're responsible for those in your charge. That means things like when everything goes right, you have to give away all the credit. And when everything goes wrong, you have to take all the responsibility. That sucks, right? It's things like staying late to show somebody what to do. It's things like when something does actually break, when something goes wrong, instead of yelling and screaming and taking over, you say, try again. When the overwhelming pressures are not on them, the are on us. At the end of the day, great leaders are not responsible for the job. They're responsible for the people who are...
I mean, once again, my man's spitting facts. I love the comparison of parenting to leadership. There's a lot of parallels there. But yeah, man, I think being a leader is a lot like, it's selfless, it's understanding, propping your people up, and taking full accountability for every possible thing that goes wrong. This isn't just in leadership, this is in life. The more things that you can, take accountability on, you should do it. It just makes you a better man, it makes you a better human. To constantly take blame for things that even if they're not necessarily yours, you're going to not only get the respect of people around you, but as points of growth. And I'm not saying just to take blame, but I'm saying take blame to grow, to show people you have their back. That's your job as a leader, is to have your people's back. At the same time, having morals and having standards that you have set, and being able to explain those core values and why you have their back, right? And knowing we're on a team and we have a common goal and that we're pulling this sled together, right? That's what a leader is. A leader leads from the front. A leader doesn't sit back and let his people pull. A leader pulls, right? A leader, like I say, they get in the trenches, right? It's not easy being a leader, man. Like Simon saying right there, there's a lot of long days, long nights, coming in on your off days, sometimes not having off days, but it's all for the betterment of the team, and goes back to knowing your leadership style, man, to see how you're going to be effective in your role. And not every leadership style is going to fit in with every management structure, right? There are going to be cultures that you go into that your style will not work there, right? And you can try to make it fit, but it's not going to fit. It's just not, but yeah, let's continue on.
Responsible for the job. They're not even responsible for the results. I love talking to CEOs and say, what's your priority? And they put their hands on their hips all proudly and say, my priority is my customer. I'm like, really? You haven't talked to a customer in 15 years. There's no CEO on the planet responsible for the customer. They're just not. They're responsible for the people who are responsible for the people who are responsible for the customer. I'll tell you a true story. A few months ago, I stayed at the Four Seasons in Las Vegas. It is a wonderful hotel. And the reason it's a wonderful hotel is not because of the fancy beds. Any hotel can go and buy a fancy bed. The reason it's a wonderful hotel is because of the people who work there. If you walk past somebody at the Four Seasons and they say hello to you, you get the feeling that they actually wanted to say hello to you. It's not that somebody told them that you have to say hello to all the customers, say hello to all the guests, right? You actually feel that they care. Now, in their lobby, they have a coffee stand. And one afternoon, I went to buy a cup of coffee, and there was a barista by the name of Noah who was serving me. Noah was fantastic. He was friendly and fun, and he was engaging with me, and I had so much fun buying a cup of coffee, I actually think I gave 100% tip, right? He was wonderful. So as is my nature, I asked Noah, do you like your job? And without skipping a beat, Noah says, I love my job. And so I followed up. I said, what is it that the Four Seasons is doing that would make you say to me, I love my job? And without skipping a beat, Noah said, throughout the day, managers will walk past me and ask me how I'm doing, if there's anything that I need to do my job better. He said, not just my manager, any manager. And then he said something magical. He says, I also work at Caesar's palace. And at Caesar's palace, the managers are trying to make sure we're doing everything right. They catch us when we do things wrong. He says, when I go to work there, I like to keep my head under the radar and just get through the day so I can get my paycheck. He says, here at the Four Seasons, I feel I can be myself. Same person.
Man, my man's still spitting fire out here. Yeah, I mean, that's a great example, right? You have the exact same person, you have to do completely different things. That's the problem with micromanaging and always trying to be on top of your people. You know, it's a fault and it's a flaw, and that does not, it will not sustain turnover. Like, you're going to continuously have turnover. You have to incorporate an environment. You have to create an environment and cultivate an environment where people feel like you're utilizing their talents. You're developing a culture that they feel safe and secure in. Like you said, there's an interesting thing that he said right there was, just trying to get through the day. I just keep my head under the radar, because the part that he said was that they try to catch me when I'm doing things wrong, right? So in that essence, right, the problem with that culture is that when you penalize people for being wrong, they hide mistakes. And when they hide mistakes, you don't get better, right? And I'm not somebody that's saying, oh, people can make all the mistakes they want to make and blah, blah. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying you need to cultivate an environment and a culture to where mistakes are okay, because we learn from mistakes, but we don't make the same mistake twice, right? There's a big difference. If you don't allow people to come to you when they make mistakes, they'll sweep it under the rug. And trust me, you're not all seeing, you're not all knowing, you're not God, you're not going to see everything. That's why your people are so important. They're on the ground all the time. They're in spots you'll never be in, and especially the higher up you go in management. It's the more you need people, lower into in the ranks, right, to be your friend. Because man, I'm telling you, like he's saying, those environments just don't work, and especially with micromanaging, that's a whole nother topic, as far as just killing productivity, killing drive, killing passion, right? If there's something somebody's naturally good at, they don't want somebody standing over them, especially. I'm not going to say all the time, but a lot of the times when you find a manager that is, when you find a manager that micromanages, a lot of times they're inept. A lot of times they don't know what they're doing, right? And don't get me wrong, sometimes they do. Sometimes they really get at what they're doing, right? But then you get to a whole other level of, they're so good, and there's a level of narcissism that they think they just do everything better than everyone else in the world, and that's another thing that won't cultivate good culture and retention of people, is thinking you're better than everybody, right? Being able to take blame is a huge part of being a leader and building a great culture. And it goes to show with this example that he gave, right, that if you cultivate an environment for people to be at their best, they will be at their best. No one wakes up in the morning and goes, you know what? Yeah, today I really want to suck at my job, right? That doesn't happen, right? Like the saying goes, right? Your people don't suck, you suck. Managers suck, right? It's not your people. It's never your people. And if you think it's your people, you're the one that sucks. It's the manager.
Entirely different experience from the customer who will engage with Noah. So we in leadership are always criticizing the people. We're always saying we got to get the right people on the bus. I've got to fill my team. I got to get the right people. But the reality is, it's not the people. It's the leadership. If we create the right environment, we will get people like Noah at the Four Seasons. If we create the wrong environment, we will get people like Noah at Caesar's palace. It's not the people. And yet we're so quick to hire and fire. You can't hire and fire your children. If your kids are struggling, we don't say, you got to see at school, you're up for adoption. So why is it that when somebody has performance problems at work, why is it that our instinct is to say, you're out? We do not practice empathy. What does empathy look like? Here's the lack of empathy. This is normal in our business world. You walk into someone's office, someone walks into our office and says, your numbers have been down for the third quarter in a row. You have to pick up your numbers, otherwise I can't guarantee what the future will look like. How inspired do you think that person is to come to work the next day? Here's what empathy looks like. You walk into someone's office, someone walks into your office and says, your numbers are down for the third quarter in a row. Are you okay? I'm worried about you. What's going on? We all have performance issues. Maybe someone's kid is sick. Maybe they're having problems in their marriage. Maybe one of their parents is dying. We don't know what's going on in their lives. And of course it will affect performance at work. Empathy is being concerned about the human being, not just their output. We have, for some reason, our work world has changed over the past 20 and 30 years. We are suffering the side effects of business theories left over from the 80s and 90s.
Okay, I mean, I agree with some of that, and I slightly disagree with some of it. I do think it's very important to lead with empathy and compassion, 100%. I think that's what makes a great leader to me. To me personally, somebody that, has strong morals, somebody that leads with empathy, leads with compassion, leads by example, always tries to do the right thing, even when nobody's looking. That all makes a great leader, right? But a lot of times in today's society, you're either at one end or you're at the other end. You're either super too empathetic to where you're allowing too many bad things to happen, trying to be understanding, right? Where that kind of takes away from culture, which that's not what he's saying, but I'm just giving you the other aspect, right? And then there's all the way to the other end that you don't care what's going on. And I think that is the absolute absence of a leader, right? To not understand what's going on in your people's lives, to not take into consideration a death of a family member, to take into consideration all these other multitude of things, right? And I do agree with him, right? And a lot of this comes from clear, concise communication. I made a video a few nights ago talking about confrontation. Confrontation solves so many problems in not just in a leadership environment, but in a social environment, right? Like if society would be not afraid of confrontation the way it is, the world would be different overnight. I mean, it just would be if you would go to the person that you're having an issue with and you would, say, hey, XYZ is going on, and have that open, mature conversation. A lot of your problems would go away overnight, like in your relationships, in your business, in your career. So many different facets of your life that will be changed overnight by your fear of confrontation. But yeah, going back to like what he said, man, leading with empathy is so crucial and so important, and understanding what's going on in your people's lives. But at some point, you have to hold them accountable for the said actions, right? There's only so much empathy that go around before you do have to take the consideration of profit and margins and, and actual productivity. I mean, it can't always just be kumbaya and, empathy, but that definitely is what you need to lead with. It's the same way if you're correcting people in an environment. I don't care if somebody's been there for 12 years. If I'm the manager, um, I'm going to treat them just like a new employee. I'm not going to go in with like, oh, you should know better. You've been here for 12 years, blah, 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 blah. No. That's the wrong way to handle it, in my opinion. In my opinion, the right way to handle it is, hey, you know that's not the standard. Or do you not know that's the standard? Well, let me walk you through the standard. See, we do X, Y, Z, and this is why. And then explain it to them. And then once you walk them through said standard, right, we can both agree that, okay, hey, this is the standard. Do you have any questions? And then once, no, I understand, I'm sorry, is it no? Okay, cool, yeah. Now, when that person deviates from that said setting of a standard, right, 4 days from now, a week from now, well, they're pretty much at that point. It's an attitude problem, right? In leadership, when things happen, you should always treat it as an knowledge issue, right? Or as a leader, you take the onus, you take the blame, and say, okay, it's a training problem, right? Or maybe somehow it fell through the cracks. And you didn't know. You've been here for 12 years. You didn't know. That's on me. I apologize. I'm sorry, but this is wrong, and this is why it's wrong. But this is the way we do it, and this is how we're going to do it. Okay? Do you understand? Yes, I do understand. If you catch them doing it outside of the way that they're doing it, that's an attitude problem, right? Because I've taken my time, which I consider my time to be very valuable. I've taken my time to show you, right, as a leader, right? Because I want you to do the right thing, because I care about you, and I care about what we're trying to do as a company, and I care about what we're trying to progress forward and to do better. And when you take that and you just go, nah, I'm not doing it, or you agree with me and then you go and do the opposite, and that's fine. I'll hold you accountable, right? But the compassion and empathy is the very forefront of the conversation. I'm not going to always just be super empathetic, super compassionate. No. There's a time still to, if you got to, lay the wood, bring the hammer down, right? But I do think it's after leading with compassion, leading with empathy.
And they are bad for people, and they are bad for business. Let me give you an example. The concept of shareholder supremacy was a theory proposed in the late 1970s. It was popularized in the 80s and 90s. It is now standard form today. You talk to any public company and you ask them their priority and they say maximize shareholder value. Really? That's like a coach prioritizing the needs of the fans over the needs of the players. How are you going to build a winning team with that model? But that's normal today. We don't even perceive it as broken or damaged or wrong or outdated. Remember, the 80s and 90s were boom years with relative peace and a kinder, gentler Cold War. Nobody was practicing hiding under their desks in school anymore. We are no longer in those times. These are no longer boom years. These are no longer peaceful times, and those models cannot work today. Here's another one. Mass layoffs. Using someone's livelihood to balance the books, right? It's so normal in America today that we don't even understand how broken and how damaging it is, not only to human beings, but to business. Companies talk about how they want to build trust and cooperation, and they announce a round of layoffs. Do you know the quickest way to destroy trust and destroy cooperation in a business, literally in one day? Lay people off, and everyone gets scared. Right? Can you imagine sending someone home to say, honey, I can no longer provide for our family because the company missed its arbitrary projections this year? And forget about the people who lost their job. Think about the people who kept their jobs. Because every single decision a company makes is a piece of communication. And the company has just communicated to everybody else, this is not a meritocracy. We don't care how hard you work or how long you've worked here. If we miss our numbers and you happen to fall on the wrong side of the spreadsheet, I'm sorry, we cannot guarantee employment. In other words, we come to work every day afraid. And we're asking our youngest generation to work in environments where how would any of us ever stand up and admit, I made a mistake? We're constantly being told you have to be vulnerable. Leaders are vulnerable. What does that even mean? It doesn't mean you walk around crying, I'm vulnerable, right? No, what vulnerability means is you create an environment in which someone feels safe enough to raise their hand and say, I don't know what I'm doing. You've given me a job and I haven't been trained to do it. I need help. I made a mistake. I screwed something up. I'm scared. I'm worried. All of these things no one would ever admit inside a company because it puts a target on your head in case there's another round. And so we keep it to ourselves. And how can a company ever do well if nobody's ever willing to admit they made a mistake, that's scared, or they don't know what they're doing? And so we've literally created cultures in which every single day everybody comes to work and lies, hides, and fakes. And we're asking our youngest generation to work and succeed and find themselves and build their confidence and overcome their addiction to technology and build strong relationships at work. We're asking them to do this, and these are the environments we've created. We keep saying to them, you're the future leaders. We're the leaders now. We're in control. What are we doing? This is what empathy means.
Yeah, man. Once again, my man spitting straight facts. The last little key point I'll make here is kind of what he said as far as, not only, the point of the shareholder is, I guess, the point I want to talk about, where he kind of says, we put the focus of the customer first. Man, and I mean, obviously, there's a lot of different theories about this. You can go back and forth with different business owners and how they do it. I'm a staunch believer in, hardcore believer in, you take care of your people over everybody. These are your family members, man. You see these people more than you see your kids, more than you see your wife, more than you see anyone. They should come first. That does not mean that the guest is not important. No, the guest is very important. Without the guest, we wouldn't be able to have a job. They pay our bills, right? But the guest is not always right. And it is very important to have your people's back, to understand that, you know, taking care of your people will always take care of you. Always, in my experience. Granted, is it, will you have a few bad apples? Absolutely, right? But the customer is not always right, right? It is good to have a mentality to lead that way, to think that way, but the customer is not always right, right? And that's when it's very important for leadership itself to that's when it's very important for leadership itself to stand behind their people when customers are wrong or when they're acting a fool, to understand that you do have their back. Um, I mean, especially when you're trying to create a culture where it's like a family, and I feel like that's where a lot of people drop the ball. But yeah, man, that's it. That's all my thoughts on this video. So, y'all have a good night.